Files with me, the Nerdy Chicano here, and today is the 11th episode, and I have myself a pretty interesting friend of mine that I've been waiting to bring on the show for a long time. He's been on the show, on the other shows on the feed for a while, but he's never been on this show yet, and I'm just trying to get this guy to be on every single show of mine so he can be the first person to get on every show, even though I believe Nikki is almost there. She's just never been on the Nerdy Chicano show, but no one else is going to ever be on that show. So look, today I have the pleasure of talking with Mr. Colton, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the last name because I can't. But Mr. Colton is a pretty big friend of mine. You may know him from the Desert Tiger podcast, and I did a pretty cool episode with him about my short film, which already came out. And Mr. Colton is here to join me today, and we're going to do a little bit of an interview / deep dive into who he is. Without further ado, I think you want to introduce yourself, Colton, to those who may not know you.
Oh, hello. My name is Colton Edwin Geschwandtner. I was actually kind of excited to hear you try and take that one because I know I totally went with a different pronunciation of your name when I had you on my show. But like you said, I am the host and producer over at the Desert Tiger podcast, where we like to interview different entertainers, just driven individuals trying to make a difference, chase their dreams in their world, just chasing what they've been dreaming about since they were a young child, sort of thing. It's all sort of different artistic individuals, such as our good friend Raul here, who we had on recently to speak about his film Beyond the River, which I may say I myself may have been moved to a tier 2 by watching the film.
Oh man, thank you. That's flattering, dude. I'm glad you really liked it. I did my best with that one, and I'm going to guess, is it the last scene or the second to last scene that might have moved you to a tier?
It was the second to last scene, right near the end, like when they're getting that hug, and like right when the camera's fading and they're like hugging, and you could like tell that she's like just wants to say so much, and you can tell that there's so much just on her mind, but at the same time she just doesn't want to ruin the moment by adding worry to it. And I don't know, it's just very beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and give you and the listeners a little bit of a not Easter egg. It's just something that was gonna happen but didn't happen. I had a scene that was planned after that, where they would finish dancing, and we were gonna cut to them sitting on the table, and she was gonna go to the restroom, and she was gonna be breaking down in there, but she would basically strengthen herself to say, you know what, we're almost done here. Like, let me just go ahead and go. And when she gets out, they would finally leave. I felt it was a little redundant though, because that feeling that you're describing that you got from it was the same exact feeling I wanted to convey in that scene. So I completely cut that scene out, and I cut out a couple of, look, I'm gonna have to stop talking about this because this isn't my interview, but I'll actually send you the script if you'd like. I will send you the script. I'd love to.
Yeah, because there's there's a lot of stuff I actually did not use or did not go the way I planned it to, and I reworded the ending and reworked it. But yeah, thank you, man. I'm really happy that you liked the short, and I'm currently writing number 5 right now.
Is that the science fiction-y one we were talking about?
Yeah. I'm writing it right now, dude. It's a pretty interesting one, and I'm taking I'm taking my time with it a little bit, but I'm really enjoying the writing process right now. But yes, for you all who just listen right now, yes, Colton is a podcaster, but he's also been more than that. Ow, just burst in my damn ear. I guess it was the headphones. I should not be playing with the cord that much. So Colton isn't just a podcaster. Before this, he was a musician. He was a music promoter and a booker as well. I think you did a little bit of refereeing for a bit, right?
I've done a little bit of refereeing in Alberta, but
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to BC, that is something that is to be worked on.
Yeah. So,
It's
you've done a lot of stuff, but the most prominent thing that you've done was the music stuff.
that was definitely my step outside of the 9 to 5 world I was inside of, and it was definitely my first step into expressing and
Mm-hmm.
exploring
Yeah.
exactly who I was, I guess I would say.
So, would you say you found yourself in music?
Music was definitely where I found myself beforehand, and before I took the step to get into uh playing music in front of people and like actually being a part of releasing music and
Mm-hmm.
being a part of a touring band. Um I always wanted to be a part of that world, but there was different reasons for wanting to be a part of that world. It was something that I had idolized when I was younger
Mm-hmm.
because of like the music video industry and just how big the music industry was at the time, and just
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like music meant a lot to me as an individual, and it helped me out through a lot of really, really hard times.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like once I finally took that step into music, and then like actually hearing from different individuals how much just our tiny little band meant to them and got them through so much, it like actually allowed me to see the value in what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you've on our episode that I did on your show, you talked a lot about how you've been really interested in performing arts since you were basically a kid. And I'm going to guess that the music came from you being a kid as well, right? That interest was way before, when you actually started being in the band, it was there since you were basically, since you could register the idea of music, right?
Um, I have always been surrounded by music. My father, one of the biggest things that we ever connected through in our time together and still connect through is our love and passion of music. And it was one of the first things that he ever passed on to me. One of the biggest connections I have to my stepfather is his love of music and the fact that he played music, and that was the one difference, that if it wasn't for him I never would
Hmm.
have actually picked up the instrument.
Yeah.
So it's it's always just been something that's been around me, and it's surrounded me even like to these days. Like one of my favorite soundtracks to work to or to clean a house to is the music of ABBA, which is super weird to say, but going back to, that's what my mom used to clean the house to. My mom used to
Hmm.
crank ABBA. So like when you were on the middle floor of the house, like you couldn't hear anything else. But like if you're on any other floor in the house, you couldn't escape it either. And like that's how I like listening to it. Of course, I
Hmm.
do it with my headphones because I live with roommates and other people who maybe won't enjoy that
ABBA.
quite as much, but it's crazy to think of just how much like just being surrounded by music has left an impression on me.
And that's the impact of art in general, man. It's it's so beautiful in the way that it's just those little things. Because I go back to my life, man, and my mom, she's an older woman, so she loves her oldies Mexican music. And when I was a kid, that music didn't interest me that much. But now, as older, a lot of my studying is done to that music. A lot of my studying, a lot of my writing is done to that music, and it really in a way, it transports me back to that time, and I feel like that's kind of what it does for you too, right? It kind of transports you back to a simpler time in your life when you were just a kid listening to ABBA with your mom as she was cleaning the house.
Well, definitely, in a way, it definitely does transport me back to those memories and associates that activity with it as well. And it gives me maybe a fondness to what I'm doing at that time, and maybe makes me a little more willing to do so because I am someone who also deals with like a lot of different like um, brain chemistry stuff, depression and otherwise, PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like maybe like it's also ways to like inspire me. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy how the brain works.
Yeah, it really is, man. You played in that band and you stopped. What happened that made you stop playing music, man?
Okay, so for years I had been like just doing session work and just like jamming with people, but never really taking music seriously. And luckily, I got to join Almost Alien. It was a amazing experience,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, it opened my eyes to just how much I could do with art and realized just like what I was capable of doing, what so many people had done for me. And these were like people who I idolized for years and who had helped me through my own like alcoholism and depression. Like I said, it helped me do that. And there was different points within Alien where I almost quit the band just due to like various different reasons. And then like I realized I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this. And we were on
Mm-hmm.
the verge of doing some incredible things. And one day while riding a bicycle, I got cut off by a car and I ended up shattering my wrist.
Ooh, yeah,
Yep. So I had it all robbed away from me
yeah.
within a moment.
Mm-hmm. That
Like
must be. That must be really hard, man. I'm telling you, that's like from there, it took your ability to, because you played bass, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there it goes. That you can't play bass anymore because you fucked up your wrist.
And that's just it. Is like I wasn't the main singer in the group or anything, and nor should I have been. I was not near talented enough to be able to hold that role within that group
Mm-hmm.
by any means. And yeah, so I was the bassist, and I prided myself on being like the stage presence heavy member of the band and like
Mm-hmm.
being able to move and do all that. And like I shattered my wrist. I didn't just break my wrist, I shattered my wrist. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you look at your wrist, like the left side of where my wrist would be was where the right side of my wrist would be, and had forced the right side of my wrist down.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
I had to stop playing music for 9 months
Mm-hmm.
before I could do anything. And I decided it was like, so I told the band it was probably best that they just go and find someone else because 9 months is a long time and they had a lot of opportunities ahead of them
Mm-hmm.
that they could have taken. And I didn't want to be the one that was limiting them from that.
Mm-hmm. Curious though. Have you? Is the band still together?
So they did play a few shows after that, but the drummer ended up moving to New Zealand.
Ooh, damn.
Yeah. So I ended up moving to BC after that because they decided they didn't want to move on like really without me, and I still told them like no, you guys have to do something. So they ended up bringing in the band's original bass player
Mm-hmm.
to play a couple shows
Mm-hmm.
to cover me, and basically I ended up moving to British Columbia after that because they still planned that no, when he's done he's probably going to want to come back, or like
Mm-hmm.
they were just going through a bunch of other things too, like they had their own lives. And I know that the singer and the guitarist are still probably writing music to this day. I know they've released music under a other band alias,
Mm-hmm.
but as of right now, two of the band members are far away, and it's been like suggested to me if I ever ended up in an area with the rest of them that we should totally do like secret shows, and we almost did a secret show last Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely have the interest to continue playing music together, and it's definitely not something that fell apart because we just weren't feeling it anymore with each other. Like there were points where definitely like all artists do, you have like creative blocks or emotional blocks and you want to take breaks, and those things get hard and you try and fight through them. But it's just it is at the end of the day, I still would like to think if we all lived in the same area, we'd all still be kicking ass.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is just playing music is such a team oriented thing. Like it's not just you, it's everybody else. So if one part of that chain doesn't feel right, it's not gonna work as correctly as it should. You know?
And that's one thing where, like, sure, you can replace a member and that member can learn the parts of your music, but you can't replace that personality.
Mm-hmm.
And what that person brings to an act is something different, because like you said, there's so much going on, and it's like a movie too, where the cameraman has his own art to him. The production guy, the guy who edits the film, has his own style of art to him. It's the same as the music industry, because a lot of people look at it as just the writing and the recording of the music is the performance, and that's not necessarily even so. The live performance of an event is incredibly crucial.
Yeah.
Because that itself is an art style, and it's something that I am privileged enough to be able to help guide some bands on right now behind the scenes. Is I'm able to just tell them, like, this is how to, like, put on a good stage presence without stealing the light from your lead singer. Like, these are the moments you're gonna want to move up to the head of the stage, but like when your lead singer's about to move, like, your guitarist and your bassist that like aren't singing, they're gonna want to fade back, and they're gonna want to stop moving just as much as maybe they would be, and you don't want to steal that attention. But you also want to know, like, you want to know when in the moment the songs are good for you to pop off, and suddenly is, because as soon as he's done, you want the show to continue to just be just as engaging as it was before, if not more, so that the audience is constantly engaged.
Yeah, it's just like wrestling as well, right? You know, it's something that you and I both enjoy. You know, they're always saying that, oh, somebody's carrying the match, someone's carrying the match. It takes two to tango, you know? It's not
this
that...
is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it very much takes two to tango. And that's something that you brought up earlier is, like, I do have some experience as a referee, and I am very lucky that I have some experience as a referee. And something that, like, the few matches I've spent in a ring taught me is just how valuable that ref is as a third person in telling that match. And it's the same with the people who are announcing a match or everything else, because like the ref's job, if a ref just stands there and like doesn't react to what's going on in the ring, why should the audience want to react to it too? But if the ref is sitting there and he's going, oh man, like, oh, that looked like it hurt, and he's like holding his hands up to his face and he's cringing and he's turning away, and like, one of the best refs I saw, that I got to work on a card with, his name is Farron Muncie, and I can't remember what his working name is, but it's a fantastic working name. And he wears a very old school reffing outfit where he wears suspenders and a bow tie. And when he works main events, he starts to loosen up the collars of his dress shirt, and he starts to slide down the suspenders, and he makes it look like this is just as taxing on him as it is as both of the performers.
That's incredible, man.
That makes the event so much better. And I did like a little bit of studying from before that, but like watching him work a main event, like just talking about it sends shivers down my spine, because like that's the difference that somebody who cares about their job can add to that storytelling.
Yeah. The thing is that, like, people think, you know, it's just the two people in there telling the story, sometimes three, sometimes more than that, right? But the performers are in there telling the story. You know, they're telling the story, but the ref is also trying to sell the authenticity of the art that's happening in there. Because, like, you know, and a friend told me this once, and, you know, I know it sounds a little bit ignorant to say it like this, but he goes, the ref's job is pretty much to make what's going on in there look real as possible, you know? He's trying to make it look as real, even though, you know, wrestling is not quote-unquote real. It's more of a performance art and all that, right? But, you know, the ref is really there to make the environment look a little bit more legit and add more to the story. So, you know, it's interesting what you're saying, that I'm guessing the way it translates over is that he's getting so tired too that he has to loosen up a little bit too. And, you know, and my favorite things that the ref do is, like, you know, when they get hit and they come back into the ring, the slow counts are my favorites, especially. You know, like, because like, they're basically saying, like, okay, I got hurt really bad, but here I'm trying to do it, and they do the slow count. And some of those are my favorites, dude. If I can look at, like, some of the old ones from the 90s, I think there was one from when Mick Foley versus The Rock when he first won the championship. There was a really, really slow count, or the slow count when Eddie beat Brock Lesnar at No Way Out 2003. You know, those are my favorites, but. You know, the ref's job is really, really important. I don't think people really understand it. And that's why I keep pushing the thing about, you know, this whole idea of the team. A team is the thing that works the best. And I was going to say, this, you know, relates as well to the podcasting. Because this is the thing I tell a lot of people. You know, and I bet you too, we've been blessed with so many good people that have been coming on for interviews. Like, nobody has come on that sounds like they don't want to be on. So when somebody comes on that obviously doesn't care and is just there just to do it, it throws off the host as well.
Oh, absolutely. If somebody is unwilling to answer a question or hasn't thought through what they think of a situation or isn't willing to express how they feel about a certain situation, you can tell. And that totally cuts off an interview because where are you supposed to go from there?
Yeah.
If somebody just keeps giving you like brick wall answers, how are you supposed to progress something and find out more?
Yep, 100%, man. And it's I'm telling you, like, people, like, gladly we haven't been the ones to have to go through that because we've had some really, really good people. Everybody sounds like they care. But I've watched interviews before, or I've listened to interviews before with guests and stuff, or people just coming on to episodes with other podcasts who sound like they don't want to be there, and it throws off the host, and the mojo of the episode just does not sound right. It's just not the dynamic that you usually listen to.
Well, and that's like even as an interviewer, that podcast host type role, when I hear someone pick up the other side, or when I get to meet someone in person right before we actually discuss something and you hear excitement in their voice, that makes me that much more excited to get to know more about that person. So as a listener, I can only imagine it's the same thing.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, the listeners are the ones that can pick up on this the most. If your listeners can hear that you don't care about what you're talking about, they're not going to want to keep listening. You know, they're smarter than that. You know, they're not going to listen to that. It's crazy, man. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump onto the podcast of yours because you started. So the way we met was obviously through a group, Reach for the Ropes, of course, but we've gotten to know each other more because when I started the podcast, like literally, like probably 2 weeks after, you talked to me about wanting to start your own, and you were coming to me for advice, like where should I go, and this and that, and what hosting and all that stuff, right? And you started yours off, and you. By the way, I'm still surprised. Is there any plans on changing the artwork of it?
Yes, there is.
I'm surprised it's still that one. Hey, it's a good one, by the way. And you've gone really far, and you have a really successful podcast on your hand. I'm just asking, like, is there any plans of changing the artwork on that?
No, we're coming up onto 2 years now, and we've been using the exact same artwork that we actually shot inside of the basement of the house that we were living in Regina, like literally a week before we moved to BC, like 2 weeks before we moved to BC when I started the podcast. And I do have total plans to change that, and I do want to change the I want to get more of like an intro going. I want to change up some of the mid rolls, because we did have a intro roll for the podcast before too, and if you listen to some of our older episodes, you'll hear it, and it was done by a good friend of mine named Jesse Hendricks, who actually works doing some production for radio stations back home in Regina. But the thing about that is it doesn't really encapsulate anything about the show anymore, because at the beginning it was just like a very bland description of what is the show, because like I got it the first month that I started the show, and the show has grown a lot more since then. And I feel not only has the show grown, but I've grown as an interviewer, and
Mm-hmm.
my talents have grown immensely, and I can dive so much deeper into an individual than I would beforehand. And like even my first interviews, you'll hear some of those really customary questions of
Mm-hmm.
somebody like, what is your favorite thing to take on the road? And like, and that's not to say that like that's dialing it in, but for me, I've found that I like much more in-depth
Yeah.
interview styles. I like Joe Rogan, where he'll actually try and get details from you.
Yeah.
Steve Austin, where Steve Austin will research someone for 10 hours and just like, here's this really obscure thing that happened in your career at this point that no one's ever asked you about. That's the stuff that I want to know, because if
Yeah.
I can find it already, great.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. That's the way that this kind of is have been moving too. It's I like more of a conversation. I don't really want to, like I don't want to know about how long did it take to shoot the film or stuff like that. I want more conversations. Like what really made you want to write this, or what made you really want to write that. It's I
mhm.
think it's a lot more interesting when it's more of the conversation based.
No, exactly. Like, what inspired you to do this? Not how long did it take you to do this? Just like, what were you trying to convey during the shoot of this, and what was difficult to convey? Because maybe you'll find out, oh, well, this is like, it didn't like we were trying to get this through, and it ended up taking us so long to shoot because we wanted to just get it right in this specific manner. And it's like, cool, that's an
Mm-hmm.
entirely different way of going about asking
Mm-hmm.
that question and finding out that information without going there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you've been doing the podcast for almost 2 years now. We basically started around the same time because I'm almost done. We're almost done too. We're like our second year's almost up, and we're gonna be on the third year already. It's
Hmm.
gonna be phase three. It's gonna be phase three soon, and it's been crazy. It's been a wild ride. But you and I started around the same time, and it's crazy to see how much you've grown, man. You've been growing so much, and I wanted to ask, well, how can I structure this? Because like what's it called? Since at what point did you have the interest in listening to other people's stories? Having to bring them in and basically for like as much as the ball rolls, just listen to them talk about this life of theirs. So when did you get that interest?
Well, it's interesting because when you ask me that, I think back and I realized that we mentioned earlier that like my dad used to make me listen to questions, and my dad actually used to question me about music a lot, and he used to just put
Mm-hmm.
on albums and he'd be like, who is this band, who's their lead singer, what album is this? And like he used to just do like silly things, and like if you can guess it right, here's 50 cents or whatever, and you can go buy candy. But at the time, like I didn't realize that he was forming someone who actually cared about the details behind all those things. And like I definitely, from different like watching like VH1 and like everything else, like I was
Mm-hmm.
raised on like old music and like much more music, and like VH1 used to release a lot of like Where Are They Now and like history documentaries of like about bands and things like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
always thought those were dope, and I was that kid who always used to read every single album liner that I could, and like
Mm-hmm.
even down to like who does each member thank, and like even that. And it's like these people I would never meet, and like
Mm-hmm.
these are people who are like just friends of them who are like obscure as stuff. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, just the fact that like they were important enough to them that like they took this moment is like, I wonder why they were that important to them. And it's just, I've always just been a naturally inquisitive person. I've always wanted to know more.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back and I was like, man, if I could have applied this to like, because like thinking about this now, this is crazy because like this has all been a process. And
Mm-hmm.
like, had I applied this to school or something else, where could it have taken me? But at the same time, like I was spending my time in high school, like being bullied and like not having a very good time at all, and using music as an escape method, and then realizing that I too could provide that for people. And like we mentioned earlier, I shattered my wrist, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that having that stolen away from me in like that July, it made me incredibly depressed. Like literally, I was sitting around at home just watching Rick and Morty and pretty much doing nothing else, and then just listening to podcasts. I was listening to so much Talk Is Jericho. Like before, I was like listening to the new episodes, but at the point I got into Talk Is Jericho, we already had 250 episodes. But I never got into the backlog, and then I just got like so depressed that I was like, I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna crush so much of this. And I just started doing it, and then it made me think back to like, I was like, man, how come like none of the interviews that like I had back when I was a band, and this isn't like me talking down on any of the interviewers that I did do that, like that I did have interviews with, but they have very limited means of which to do their interviews, whereas like for TV and radio, they only have so many minutes in a program in order to dedicate towards certain things. So as a small town band, like we're only getting 5 minutes on the radio or other things. And there was one interview specifically where we got interviewed about misogyny inside of music, because the story so far at the time had the dude who sings in the band ended up kicking a girl off stage in Toronto at the point. Like, for some reason, we got contacted to do an interview for this situation because we were the local pop punk band. And for some reason, they thought that, like, we were experts on this. No, we've never played in front of that many people. The only reason we've ever played loud shows is because they were festivals, or because like the headliner was mad sick. And I am so thankful to anyone who ever gave us those opportunities, because playing those sold out shows taught me so much about this industry. But at the same time, it's like there were people who were trying to tell like a friend of mine to not promote that show. And it's like, and that girl had admitted that she was in the wrong place, and that she was doing like, that she was stealing attention away from the band, and that maybe she like shouldn't have done that. And she had no intention of trying to draw this out. And it was only the media that was drawing it.
But also, Parker doesn't have the right to basically assault someone, right? You know, that's
okay. It's true. And this is something that it's difficult after, I'm sure you've heard of Pantera and Dimebag Darrell. Dimebag Darrell got shot on stage after someone who he thought was a fan came on stage and then pulled out a gun.
Yeah, both of them.
Randy Blythe.
Both of them are in the wrong, man.
To jail. Yeah. Randy Blythe went to jail because a drunk guy went on stage and kept trying to go at him. And Randy Blythe doesn't wear glasses. So, like, this guy came at him with open arms, and, like, this guy had been causing problems at the show. So Randy Blythe thought he was coming to cause problems with him. He ends up clinching him because Randy Blythe is, like, trained in some form of MMA. And, like, the dude ends up like jumping off stage later on. Nobody catches him. Security beats the crap out of this guy later on. The guy dies, and people try blaming Randy Blythe, and they try throwing him in prison.
Yeah, I mean, it just happened to A$AP Rocky. Remember, you know, A$AP got caught. You know, they caught him in the street. They tried to, you know, beat him up. Keep defending himself. He went to jail in Sweden. You know,
and that's my thing. Is as a stage presence heavy individual who plays bass. Bass is a heavier than guitar, and like I've hit our singer in the face with like the end of my bass before, and like I'm lucky that I just like barely got him. But if somebody jumps on stage and I'm doing spins or something, like I can straight up like knock someone out. If I catch someone in the temple, I can kill them.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because that comes back on me.
Yeah, so to me, that girl and Parker, both of them share equally as much as the blame. But to me, what's so interesting about that situation, since we're kind of talking about it right now, it's just thinking back, everybody blamed her. Like there was very little bit of people saying like they were very on either the other side.
The media blamed him though.
Yeah, but like I never really listened to the media, man. You know, I was like checking, you know, Facebook comments and stuff like that, you know, like forums and all that. They were the ones who were blaming the girl, and like nobody else was like thinking, hey, maybe it's kind of both of their fault because they're both being idiots.
Oh man, so my friend, and he's actually somebody who you have also met through Reach from the Ropes,
Mm-hmm.
who was the promoter on the show. He ended up getting harassed and being called a misogynist for
Yeah.
putting on the show, and he booked the show before this even happened.
God, yeah. You can't control what happens in those like, why the promoter is the last person that you need to be the one to blame, right? Because like they're just the one who get the show ready. They have nothing else to control in the actual event. They're just the one who's ringing the band over here, and that's it.
Well, exactly. He got offered a bill that was expected to sell a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
And at the point in time, like, also had another Canadian act on the bill for that end of the tour that was also very big and also had a very big draw in our city. So he would have been foolish not to have taken it.
No, it's business, man. And I think that's what people don't get. It's like, here we have a really good opportunity for me to make some money. Hell, I'm going to try to make some money. I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically what happened is a local media source pulled us in and asked us to do an interview on it. Mm-hmm. I decided I would be there that day just to do it, just because I was the only member of our band who truly fully listened to that group. And that's not me throwing anyone in my band under the bus. That's just me saying, like, I was the only one who actually knew and, like, could speak on their music. So, like, we didn't want to sound unintelligent. So, like, I came in and I spoke and I started going into misogyny in all forms of music. And why are we allowing music on the radio that's degrading women, that's degrading people of different sexual orientations, that's degrading people of open-mindedness, if we're going to attack someone who maybe we're taking something out of context on?
Yeah.
So they did use a large portion of what I said during the interview, but they cut out that portion of the interview, and then they ended up adding in, because like our drummer, who, like, drummers are normally in a stationary position unless you're Tommy Lee or like the dude from Blink-182 where you've got flying drum sets. Like, normally your drum kit's not going anywhere,
Joey
right?
Jordison from Slipknot too. Remember they made him go into like that platform where they would pick him up and they spin him around and shit.
Even Jay Weinberg, who's drumming for Slipknot now.
Yeah.
Really cool platform style stuff. But even then, like, unless you're a really, really big act, you're not going to get something like that. So for him, like he said, like, for me, my concern is I'm going to knock somebody out or I'm going to knock someone on stage and then I'm going to get sued. For him, he can see when most people are coming up unless they come from behind, and like he can acknowledge their presence. So for him, he's like, well, like if somebody jumped on stage, I don't know, I'd probably just like take a selfie with them or rock out for a moment. So they put that on there because that fit their storytelling demographic of trying to say this guy is a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so so that really ticked me off. So then, like, I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, so how many other, like, this has been a really long-winded answer, and I'm so sorry.
No. I like it. I like that we're getting into this conversation.
But yeah, so basically that was like, and I was listening to Talk is Jericho, and I was like, and he was doing some shows on like smaller bands and everything else, and I was like, okay, so why can't I do the same thing? Why can't I interview bands that like I've toured with or like I have interest with who also haven't had the opportunity to get themselves out there, or even just like smaller wrestlers or like anything else, just anything I had an interest in? Because like we said, I've always had an interest in performing arts, and before I shattered my wrist, I was actually like trying to reach out to a group in Regina called High Impact Wrestling. They were not responding to my emails. That's not me throwing them under the bus either. I'm just saying, like, I reached out to them like the month before I shattered my wrist. Then I shattered my wrist. And it was just like, well, shit. So, like, this is something I tried setting the wheels in motion. And, like, I was lucky enough that my first interview was this guy, Danny Duggan, who happens to run the only, like, fully across Canada touring promotion in Canada. So, like, that was a huge first get. But, like, for me, it was like I started out with a lot of interviewing a lot of bands who hadn't yet had that opportunity to fully share who they were and what their story was. And that drove me.
Yeah. That's what that's what I like about what you do, man. You know, you get people who most of the time won't get a platform to speak on, and they can come in and talk about what, you know, their art. You know, that's kind of the what's it called? What I try to do on mine. Like, I don't care if you're a student who's making their new short film. Like, come on, we'll talk about it. Don't worry about it. I don't care if you're a comic book writer or, you know, creator who has like 2 people buy your book the whole year. Like, just come on, we're gonna talk about it. You know, it's about giving platforms to the people who most of the time don't get the chance to speak on what they love on a level like this.
Well, even then, like some of the guests I've had in the past where it'll be set up through a PR manager, and I'm very lucky to have been set up with PR managers that I do work with, but they'll be told like, oh, you're going on this show to talk about your new single, and then I'll be lucky enough to find out that, oh, this person has also done this, and this, or this is how they got into this. Can I somehow ask them about this and how it applies to this? And then like that'll always take people by shock, because like it blows my mind how much at the end of interviews where somebody will be like, wow, those were really great questions, or when's the next time I can come on the show?
Yeah. Those are my favorites. Yeah, and
that's the thing. It's like, we just dove through like your entire career. What do you mean come back on the show in like 3 months? And I was like, no, I'd love to. Let's do it again, please.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll see if we can make it happen. But yeah, sure. Because like I literally just had an industry like legend in Canada by many like concerns and very people's like validations, like actually ask me as soon as the interview was over, like, when is the soonest time I can come back on? And this is somebody who last year, like not even a year ago, I tried messaging about, and I didn't even get a message back from her management. Like, I got ghosted. And to go from getting absolutely nothing to they messaged me to her herself now enjoys my work so much that she wants to come back on the show like ASAP is like the amount that like that just shows me how much I have been able to achieve in 2 years.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. It's the same way I feel about when what's it called, when I got an interview with Zach Stentz because I tweeted him, and then after he's like, all right boys, I can't wait to be on the next one. And I'm like, oh crap, yeah, let's try to do that again. And then here we are. I ask him like, hey, see when's the next time we can possibly bring you back? He goes, oh, I'm doing Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous next spring. When I need to promote that, well, you'll be the first one I come to and talk to about it. Like, okay, cool, yeah. Or, you know, what's it called? Jason Inman, Ashley Victoria Robinson, just constantly people that I'm going back to interview. They're awesome people. And, you know, I think for a reason, these people say yes to being interviewed by you. You know, I think that's like, they see something where they're like, either we really need to promote this, or this is a pretty interesting avenue to take and a really interesting, show. So let's go on here and talk with them about our thing that we're going to be doing. So it's interesting, man. And I think those are the ones that, you know, when they ask you when's the next one you can do, or like when they say yes to coming back, you know, those are the ones that really make you feel like, you know, this is worth it, you know.
Well, especially when it's somebody that you know that they've been doing this for how long too, and they've had do a lot of like press, to know that like they appreciate you is like, that really makes a difference, because wow. Like I happy cry sometimes when I get interviews, and it's crazy just how much like sometimes just being able to impress one person or catch their eye will open your door to more avenues and opportunities.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's an amazing thing, dude, and that's it's a really fun thing that you do. And yeah, I'm checking the time here. Looks like we're pretty good on time, because we need to do a Patreon section after this. So I'm gonna let the ball roll for like a little bit, 10 more minutes. But
yeah, I don't know how many questions you walked into this with, so I'm sorry if I've been going really long form answer. I'm a chatter, my dude. I'm a chatter.
Yeah, no. Guess how many questions I came in here with written down.
I'm guessing you just rolled in free form.
Yes, I did. I had a couple, like 3 who are in my head that I know I want to ask, everything else is just that little things that you say in between here that I just want to like pick apart a little bit and, you know, kind of deep dive into it. You know, that's my style of interviewing, honestly, man. It's just like, okay, I got certain things I want to ask, but if you say anything in between, I'm going to pick apart from there and ask something from there and just going to keep on picking at the scab, you know?
That's what I like to do too. I like walking in with like, I don't walk in with questions. I walk in with notes.
Yeah.
Just notes on notes on notes. And like when I interviewed this band called The Trues earlier this year, like the guy, like you could almost tell that he was a little taken aback at like how little information I had with me. Because literally, I walked in with, what are your new singles? What are your albums? Who are the band members? And a few little details about the new album. And what he didn't realize is I've been a huge fan of this band since like 2003, 2004. So like you could tell on his face, he's like, you're going to get a half-hour interview out of this. And at the end of the interview, like other members of the band were coming up to me and being like, I wish I would have been there. Next time we come through, I need to be a part of this. And it's like that, like, wah!
Yeah, man. It's. I feel like that is such a thing that I want to do. Like, you know, of course, Zach Stens, you know, he's made a couple of movies that I really like that I got to talk to him about. But like, if I ever get the chance to interview someone like Alejandro González Iñárritu, Gaspar Noé, you know, those big names that, you know, that I would honestly spend more than half an hour just asking all these things and just dissecting into all these other movies and stuff. And it's incredible, man. And, you know, that's an awesome thing that you do here. I think I got one more thing I want to ask because.
Hey, go right ahead.
Yeah. What were you going to say? Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, just keep on taking those shots and building those steps. Keep building your mountain, man. And you never know. Opportunities are going to open up along the way. Like, literally this past week, I've gotten greenlit for so many interviews with bands that are not only bands that I've been a fan of, but like bands I used to listen with, like with my dad, bands I used to listen with like my best friends when we got out of high school, bands that were like the first bands I got to go see when I was like of drinking age and actually got to go into the bar. And like, those are opportunities. And like, I know that those were only opened up to me because of things I've done in the past. And I know that these are going to open me up to more things. So just keep taking those shots, dude.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask, honestly, man. Look, if I was able to get an interview from a tweet, I think, I'm good. Like, I just got to keep asking. Yeah, it's and that's one of our best episodes too. If I was able to get one over a tweet, Jesus, man. But look, I have one more thing. You know, obviously I didn't ask the icebreaker question because obviously you're like a big friend of mine. You know, I've known you for a while. I don't need to do an icebreaker for you, you know. And we basically already talked a little bit about the future of the podcast because you're getting new logo, new artwork, new intro, and all that stuff. But I guess I can ask maybe what is some form of advice you can give anybody who basically wants to go down the whole interview podcast route right now?
There's a lot of options for interviews, and like podcasts are a growing medium, and that's a beautiful thing because like I mentioned earlier, on radio and news shows, you're very limited to 3 to 5 minute time slots, and there's only so much you can get across in that point. To be an interviewer, you have to have passion for it. You have to have passion to actually want to know these answers. You have to actually have passion to want to know these people because like we mentioned earlier, if you don't, the listener is definitely going to be able to hear that come across in your questioning, in your interview process. Find out what your niche is. And this goes for like any podcast when it comes down to it. How are you different from somebody else? One thing that I like to think that I'm very different from is I do an outrageous amount of research. More research than I probably should. Like there's interviews that I know I'm only going to have 20 minutes for that I will pour into 6 hours worth of research just so that there will be no awkward spots, no absolute dead time, so that I know that I can get into absolutely everything. I'm that guy. I'm that guy who's going to dig through everything that you love so that I can find out something more interesting about you that no one else was ever able to get. And that's something that I'm priding myself on. And that's something that's evolving too. That's it. Is if you have a certain, and that's how are you different? It goes for the same thing for like the hot ones on YouTube, where they literally have people eat chicken wings, and that adds just a layer to the show because you also have the people reacting to the hotness of the chicken wings.
I can't remember if you were the one who asked me, because I did, I think 3 episodes for the promotion for the short. I don't know if you were the one who asked me about the coloring of the film, and you said, because you asked me about the coloring for Bloodline. And were you the one who asked me and told me, was it intentional for you to make this look really brown? And I told you, yes, because I wanted it to look like an old picture that you were looking at. Like if it was your family, and make it seem like you're, in a way you could connect to your family as well. You were the one who asked me about that, right?
And you have to look at it with, because as an interviewer, you have to also think about it from a listener standpoint. And that's one reason why I like to listen. And that's like also going into this, listen to the person you're interviewing.
Oh yeah.
You can walk in with a list of questions, but if you try and force only that list of questions, you're going to get a very customary interview, and maybe that person's going to turn on you halfway through and lose some interest. And that's not a good thing. Yeah. You need to be able to engage and dive deeper into what they're doing. You need to be able to listen.
Yeah, dude. And I was like super taken aback. Not taken aback. I was just surprised. I was like, holy shit. This short film, this doc has been out for almost 2 years. And nobody has asked me about that question. But here comes in Colton, who I know, like, what's it called? I don't know that much about how you dissect film. And I was like, holy crap, he just pointed out something that not even like my film student friends have even, brought up to my attention. Like, this guy was able to get that out. I was like, holy crap.
Well, even with your new film, when I was asking you about it, when I asked you about gear challenges, and you brought up the fact that like the fading out in and out actually maybe adds something to it. That was something I was specifically watching for when I watched it now. Yeah. Just watching and like, all right. And I completely agree that it totally like adds to the effect of, like, we're losing control, we're trying to hold on to it, like we're trying to say everything's good, but is it really?
Exactly. So that's that, man. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here. You're of course going to come back. The thing I'm doing kind of with this show, like if I bring back somebody else, now we're going to get into like the whole specific realm of conversations I want to have. Like this show shouldn't be completely only interviews. At first, when they first come on, it should be an interview, and then from there we can go in and talk with them about like certain topics. But we're gonna get to go right now into the Patreon section. But before we do that, I do have to sign off right here for you all, because only Patreon supporters can listen to the Patreon section. Of course, it's in the name. Yes. So. Oh my. Thank you so much to Colton for being on here, man. It really, really does. It really does warm my heart that you were here, man. It was a really fun talk, and even though we didn't go as deep as I think we can go, because there's just so much layers to us as human beings, man. So I knew I can't come in and ask everything, but we can just always keep on trucking along and bring you back for another time. So, Colton, where can they find you on the internet, man?
Well, before I say that, I'm just going to mention that I know that both of us are the type of people that if we wanted to get really into it, we could have hours on hours to do so.
Oh, yeah, for sure, right, man. Yeah, this would be a 2-hour if we could really get into it. But, I produce this, and I'm like, hey, man, I know that people can't listen to more than 2 hours. Unless it's like a huge name. Like if I had a freaking Spielberg, of course I'd go 2 hours with Spielberg, but with you, like they're not gonna listen more than like it's just with me. Like if our episode would have been 2 hours, I don't think people were gonna listen to that, dude.
Oh, and I know myself well enough to understand that too, right?
Yeah. Plus our mouths were gonna get a little bit too dry, and right now before we do the Patreon section, I'm gonna go in and get another water.
That's completely fair. Well, before we get there, where can people find more about me on the internet? Well, let's start off with the reason that brought me here. Desert Tiger. Desert Tiger is known as Desert Tiger Podcast or Desert Tiger Entertainment. Why Desert Tiger Entertainment? Because I had to put a business license behind it for promotion reasons. So it's called Entertainment on my website and on our Facebook, but I believe on our Instagram and our Twitter, we are Desert Tiger Podcast. I'm sorry if that is annoying. If you want to find out more about me, I am Colton Edwin Geschwandtner. You can friend me on Facebook. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter, which I believe is CG Free. I have no idea why it's CG Free. I believe I set that when my 2011, and I really want to change it. I'm just not sure how to change a Twitter handle.
Oh, I can help you out with that, man.
Okay, so I just have to look into that because I need to get it a little bit more on brand. And on Instagram, I believe I am Colton.G_. G is a nickname I've had from grade school because Geschwandtner does not fit inside of EA Sports video games freaking player creation mode. So rather than just leaving my name short, we just dropped 11 of the letters and added an extra E.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. But yeah, this has been my talk with Colton Geschwandtner, and it's been a wonderful time here with him. He's a good man. He's a good friend of mine, and I know I'm going to bring him back to talk specific stuff, and we're going to go ahead and hop on to the great Patreon section in a bit. But before that, I got to tell you all to go rate and review this podcast on your podcast app of choice. It really does help the feed grow. Also, make sure that you're going to the Nerdcore on Instagram at the Nerdcore Pods on Facebook, and the Nerdcore_ at Twitter on Twitter. Guys, help us out, man. We gotta get the Nerdcore on Twitter without the underscore. Like the person who has this account, man. Like, you haven't used it since 2013. Just stop using it. Just delete the account so you can get the at. But yeah, that stuff is really annoying. We want to have it a brand with everybody's the same handle. But look, that's that, and it's been a wonderful time. And as always, you can go and join the Patreon, because that's going to get you access to this show earlier than anybody else if you sign up to the $1 tier. But if you sign up to the $5 tier, you're going to get to listen to the After Hours, which is the Patreon section of this episode right here. And you get to listen to the last After Hours with Elaine Vargas. And it's been that was a really good one. And you guys really liked Elaine Vargas's interview. You guys got that episode to 125 plays. That's crazy. I don't know why you guys decided to come out for that one, man. But and I know why. It's because Elaine's an incredible podcaster, and it was such a fun time talking with her. But I was just super surprised. I was like, how the hell did you guys come out for this one? Like, wow, I didn't expect for this to happen. But yeah, this is the podcast business. You never really do expect these things to happen. You just keep on making content and just have a good time doing it. So, and I had a really fun time doing this here with Colton. So, with that being said, it's been a wonderful time, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. But for right now, the case is closed, but it's not classified. I'll see you guys later.